On our wedding night, Andrew went to be with his idealized first love, sending his friend to take his place with me. They thought my night blindness hadn't healed and that I wouldn't be able to see in the dark. But they had no idea I'd recovered long ago. Just yesterday, right after the wedding ceremony, I went to the dressing room to change into an evening gown. When I came out, I overheard my groom, Andrew, chatting with his friends. One of them said, "Andrew sure knows how to have a good time. Just got married here, and now he's off for a honeymoon abroad." Hearing this, a faint smile touched my lips. I was about to walk over to them when I heard Julian's voice. "If you have your idealized first love, why marry Grace?" His idealized first love? My heart clenched, and the foot I'd lifted refused to move. Andrew had his back to me, hands in his pockets, a nonchalant expression on his face as he said, "Sharon is my first love. Who can ever forget their first love? Since she came back to me, of course I should be happy. As for Grace, she's highly educated, a young executive at Sterling, and she landed me a huge deal that really helps my career. But I can't lose Sharon either. So, I'll have a wedding first, to give Grace a sense of security." I felt my blood run cold. Julian seemed to glance my way, so I quickly ducked behind a nearby pillar, just in time to hear him say, "So, you plan to date two people at once?" Another person chimed in, "Hey, Julian, don't put it so harshly. Our here is just happy," Andrew said. "All right, enough messing around. Sharon will be getting impatient waiting at the airport soon." Julian's tone hinted at displeasure. "You mean you're going to ditch your bride right now?" Andrew said with extreme nonchalance. "Don't worry, she has night blindness and can't see anything once it gets dark. Otherwise, which one of you wants to take my place tonight for the wedding night?" Someone said. This isn't right, is it? No matter what, she's still one of our sister-in-laws," Andrew said. "Julian, you're about my build. Just pretend to be drunk and leave before dawn. She'll never find out." My phone buzzed with a text message. "Andrew, you worked hard today. My love. Something urgent came up at the office, so I need to go handle it. You head back and rest." If I hadn't personally witnessed him and his friends brazenly discussing his idealized first love and his plan to abandon me, I genuinely would have believed he loved me. It turns out, he only coveted my executive position. Ha 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 ha, what a colossal irony. What he didn't know was that I wasn't just an executive at Sterling. I was also its sole heir. I immediately changed his contact name from husband to scumbag. I replied, "Take care of business." Andrew proudly showed off my reply to his friends. "See? All I have to do is mention an urgent matter at the office, and she's sweet and understanding enough to let me handle it." He patted Julian's shoulder. "Brother, tonight is all yours." He left with light steps, and the others also clamored to return to the banquet for drinks. I immediately sent a text to my dad. "Dad, cancel the investment planned for Skywing tomorrow." My dad called to ask what happened. I briefly explained the reason, promising to elaborate when I came home tomorrow. Originally, after the wedding today, I had planned to take Andrew back to Sterling and reveal my true identity to him. He was so close to gaining Sterling's backing, which, as he said, would have greatly helped his career. Now, I truly had him to thank. My thoughts snapped back. I called Andrew's phone. As I expected, it was switched off. He must have been certain the investment would go through today, allowing him to openly honeymoon with his idealized first love. He was so arrogant. I couldn't wait to see his face a month from now when he returned to learn the project had failed. I got up, got ready, and changed into a sweet dress. I went to the underground parking garage and walked toward a convertible sports car. This was originally Andrew's wedding gift from me, which I'd planned for us to drive to register our marriage certificate today. Now, it seemed some people were destined to get nowhere in life. I drove the sports car back to Sterling. Maria, the housekeeper, had just finished making lunch and said upon seeing me, "Miss is back." I nodded. My parents, Arthur and Eleanor, heard Maria's voice and came from the living room. Eleanor immediately came up and hugged me. I gently patted Eleanor's back. "Mom, I'm fine." Arthur simply watched us embrace. "When let go of me," he said. "Let's eat first." Eleanor nodded. Yes, let's eat first. Today, I had Maria make all your favorite dishes." Eleanor kept putting food on my plate, saying I'd lost weight living away from home. Eleanor continued serving me food, muttering curses. "That kind of scumbag. Good thing we found out early, or my Grace would have been terribly wronged." Arthur said, "Since you've broken up with him, move back home." Eleanor nodded in agreement. That's right, Grace. You living alone worried me sick. That scumbag just abandoned you yesterday. If you hadn't stopped me, I would have personally gone to the airport with people to intercept him and beat him up. I won't move back just yet. He still thinks I'm in the dark, believing he'll definitely get the investment today and rise to power. Of course, the act had to be thorough. I looked at Arthur. Dad, let's set my inauguration as president for 1 month from now. That evening, I returned to the apartment I'd bought. After showering and stepping out of the bathroom, I saw Julian sitting on the small sofa in the bedroom. I feigned reaching out and walking forward, then slipped and let out a surprised gasp. Julian darted forward and caught me around the waist. I tentatively called out, "Husband?" I saw him swallow. He picked me up and placed me on the bed, then turned and went into the bathroom. The sound of rushing water came from inside. Through the glass door of the bathroom, I could vaguely make out his silhouette as he showered. I found it amusing. I walked outside the bathroom, opened the door, and my gaze fell upon Julian's abs. He was visibly startled. "Husband, didn't you say there was an issue with the overseas branch and you had to go on a business trip for a month?" His response was to pull me close, letting the shower overhead continue to drench his back. He kissed me passionately, my slip nightgown falling to the floor. With a spin, we both tumbled into the bathtub, sending a huge splash of water everywhere. When I woke up, Julian was already gone. For the next month, Julian appeared promptly every night, and we spent each night together. A month flew by, and Andrew was due to return to the country with his idealized first love. I specifically went to the airport to meet him. From a distance, I saw him pushing luggage, with his idealized first love clinging to his arm, walking along, chatting and laughing, looking every bit like a married couple. I took out my phone and captured the scene. As I got closer, Andrew finally saw me. Startled, he quickly pulled his arm from his idealized first love's grasp and hurried towards me. "Grace, what are you doing here?" His idealized first love shot me a hostile, challenging look from behind him. I smiled, pretending not to notice. "You said you'd be on a business trip for a month, and I figured it was about time you returned today. I didn't know your flight time, so I just checked some inbound international flights for these past few hours. I guess I'm lucky. I just arrived and found you." I certainly wasn't going to tell him I'd researched his flight information and deliberately waited for him at this exact time. Andrew nodded. "Oh, so that's how it is." Only then did my gaze fall upon his idealized first love as she approached. I looked at Andrew with feigned curiosity. "And who is this?" Andrew said. "This is an upperclassman from our university. She happened to be on the same flight as me. We ran into each other right after we got off, and I saw she was a woman traveling alone with a lot of luggage, so I helped her carry it." I nodded. "Is your phone still off?" He seemed to suddenly remember his phone. He took it out, a contrite expression on his face. "Sorry, Grace. I was so busy abroad that I never turned it on." I gazed at the dark circles under his eyes. It certainly looks like you've been busy. So busy. He must be seriously drained." I couldn't help but recall Julian's face. He had spent every night with me for an entire month, yet he had no dark circles under his eyes. Clearly, he was a man capable in that regard. Andrew took out his phone, and as soon as he turned it on, it started buzzing incessantly with notifications. He frowned at the dozens of missed calls from the company, muttering under his breath, "Isn't this supposed to be my private honeymoon? Why are they still bothering me with company matters?" I pretended not to hear him clearly. "What did you say?" He smiled and shook his head. "Nothing. I just meant I was quite busy on my business trip abroad. I didn't expect domestic issues would still require my attention." He immediately tapped on a voicemail message, and a furious voice boomed from his phone. "Andrew, what the hell are you playing at? The investment got cancelled, so you decided to disappear on me." Ha! He was utterly shocked and quickly turned off the speaker, switching to the earpiece. The more he listened, the uglier his expression became. "What's wrong? You look really unwell." Andrew completely ignored me. He turned to his idealized first love. "Sharon, go settle in first. I have an urgent matter to attend to. I need to leave." Andrew took off running. His idealized first love, no longer maintaining her docile demeanor in front of Andrew, extended a hand towards me. "My name is Sharon." I looked at her hand but didn't shake it, simply nodding. True to your name. A true white lotus indeed. Over the past month, I had already had someone investigate Andrew and Sharon's past. Sharon wasn't just some upperclassman. She was Andrew's childhood sweetheart, As for her looks, she wasn't as pure as her name suggested. She looked a bit aged. Perhaps like the internet says, women who've had children tend to age faster. Andrew really wasn't picky. People usually look for younger, prettier mistresses than their wives. But he, of all people, found an older one? Sharon wasn't annoyed that I ignored her. She withdrew her hand and smoothed the stray hairs from her forehead. I'll tell you the truth, Andrew wasn't on a business trip this past month. He was on our honeymoon with me. We went to several countries. And every day, he'd cling to me and call me baby. Sharon smiled triumphantly. I frowned in disgust. Ugh, he really isn't picky. She wanted to see me furious. But my calm reaction only infuriated her. By the look on your face, you already knew. I spread my hands. So what if I did? Humph. The person he truly loves has always been me. So what if he had a simple wedding with you? As long as you don't have a marriage certificate, you're not his wife. I quickly waved my hand. Please, ma'am, don't make me sick. Who wants to get a marriage certificate with him? Since you two are so smitten with each other, I wish you both, you two deserve each other. May your perfect match last forever. Sharon's expression grew increasingly sour. I added, you two remember to stay together forever. Okay, don't ever ruin anyone else's lives. With that, I turned and walked away. Sharon was stomping her feet in a rage. I switched off the voice recorder in my bag and drove to the hospital. Just as I retrieved my morning blood test results from the machine, my phone rang. The caller ID read, "Scumbag." I glanced at the lab results, elevated progesterone, confirming pregnancy. I blocked Scumbag's number, but he sent a voicemail. Grace, why can't I reach you? Why was Sterling's investment cancelled? Doesn't that mean all my hard work and dedication for so long has been for nothing? I'm coming to Sterling. Right now. You people need to give me an explanation for this, or I'm completely ruined. My phone rang again. This time it was Mike the agent. I had listed my apartment online for sale. I slid the answer button. Mike the agent's voice came through the phone. Mr. David's family has finished viewing your apartment. When would be a good time for you to sign the sales contract? I can sign it now. If they want to move in, they can do so today. Wait for me. I'll be right back. I first took my medical report to the doctor's office, where I was told the baby was healthy and to come back in 2 weeks for an ultrasound. Afterward, I drove back. The agent and the family buying the house were all waiting for me in the living room. As soon as I entered, Mike the agent hurried forward. Miss, you're back. This is the sales contract drafted according to your requirements. Mr. David's family has no issues with the price. If it's agreeable, could you please sign and proceed with the transfer? Mrs. Sarah said. Miss, your apartment has such a great layout and is still so new. Are you really willing to sell it at such a low price? I looked at the apartment. Indeed, I hadn't lived in it for more than a few months. I took the contract directly from Mike the agent's hand, signed both copies, and handed them to Mrs. Sarah, who then smiled contentedly. Mr. David was also a straightforward person. He immediately transferred the money. I took $10,000 in cash from my bag. This was Mike's commission. Mike, beaming with joy, kept calling me sis. I'll leave the transfer procedures to you. You can move in today. With that, I left. Mike repeatedly assured me, don't worry, sis. I'll get it sorted quickly. As soon as I returned to Sterling, Scumbag's voicemail started flooding in again. What exactly are you doing? Why can't I reach your phone? I went to Sterling to find you, but the front desk wouldn't even let me up. I went home to find you, and a man opened the door. He even had security throw me out of the neighborhood. What have you been doing behind my back this past month while I was away? Why did that man say it was his house? The reason I hadn't blocked him on WeChat yet was because I wanted to see his reaction when he found out I'd sold the apartment. Seeing that I was ignoring him, he softened his tone and sent another message. Grace, you know how important the collaboration with Sterling is to me. You're the director of marketing. You couldn't possibly be unaware of the reasons. As I drank the gourmet smoothie Maria had just prepared, Andrew directly video called me. I answered. The video showed me eating a gourmet smoothie in a luxurious mansion. I saw Andrew's face darken. You finally decided to answer? Where are you? Why was Sterling's promised investment cancelled? Do you have any idea what a colossal disaster this is for me? All my people are out of jobs because the funding didn't come through. Even I have to bear the company's losses. I continued to eat my gourmet smoothie bite by bite. Andrew finally revealed his true, ugly colors. Did you cheat on me with some rich guy while I was on my business trip abroad? I swallowed the last spoonful of gourmet smoothie and looked up at the scumbag on the screen. You've said so much. Which part do you want me to answer? He finally quieted down, waiting for my response. Andrew, were you really on a business trip abroad this past month? He visibly relaxed. Grace, how can you ask that? Didn't I tell you I went to deal with some issues at the overseas branch? If you say it was for a business trip, then why, for this entire month, were you completely unaware that Sterling hadn't invested? What? Did you cut off all company contact while you were away? Then tell me, how exactly were you cooperating with the company's work? Andrew clearly hadn't prepared a response to that question. After all, he thought the investment was a sure thing, and now it had utterly backfired on him. He said, "So, you manipulated things, didn't you? Why would you do that? I'm your husband. What good would my career decline to you?" I quickly held up a hand. Stop. We merely had a simple wedding. We haven't even met each other's parents, let alone gotten a marriage certificate. So, at best, I can only say I was temporarily blind to have agreed to date you for several months. Andrew, as expected, was fuming. Grace, do you think just because you ruined our collaboration, I'm out of chances? Sterling agreed to invest in my project before because someone higher up saw its potential. I heard Sterling is getting a new president tomorrow. Even without you, I'll definitely secure another investment. I nodded non-committally. Well then, I wish you success. I hung up the video call and deleted his contact. Eleanor returned with a stylist. Grace, come on, time for your makeover. Look at these gowns I picked out for you. You'll absolutely stun everyone. I looked at the gowns being wheeled in. They were all very dazzling. Mom, I'm just taking over as president, not entering a beauty pageant. Besides, most of the company employees already know me, so there's no need to be so grand. Is there? Eleanor, without a word, held up a red strapless gown against me. This one really highlights my Grace's fair skin, beauty, and long legs. Wear this one first. We'll keep the others on standby. I nodded. All right. I went to change into the red gown, and the stylist began to do my hair and makeup. When I arrived at the banquet hall, the company's executives and many business partners were already there. After a brief welcome and introduction by the host, Arthur stepped onto the stage. He said, "I'm delighted that everyone could join us for this banquet tonight. This evening, I am here to announce that my daughter will formally assume the position of president of Sterling." The host next to him said, "A round of applause for our new president." I walked in my high heels through the applause to Arthur's side. My eyes immediately found Julian, the man who had spent every night with me. Why was he here? A flicker of confusion crossed my mind before I took the microphone offered by the host. "Hello everyone, I am Grace. From this moment on, I will be taking over as president of Sterling. I look forward to your continued support and understanding." Someone in the audience said, "Isn't that director from Sterling's marketing department? It seems president had her gain experience from the ground up. President certainly knows how to raise a daughter, cultivating such an outstanding one who can become the group's president at such a young age." Business partners in the audience were already offering congratulations. Arthur's face glowed with immense pride. When first returned to the country, I wanted her to take over as president immediately, but she insisted on gaining hands-on experience in the lower ranks first, to better understand the company from the inside out. So, I let her. They say a tiger's father never has a slacker cub. President is so formidable, and the daughter he raised is just as exceptional. Arthur led me off the stage to introduce me to some partners and board members I didn't know. I could see that some people were merely flattering Arthur, and there were even those who resented me, a young woman, taking over the group. But they refrained from acting out due to the large crowd. I held a glass of juice and followed Arthur as he made the rounds, toasting with everyone. "Excuse me, I'm not good with alcohol, so I'll toast with juice instead. I hope you gentlemen will forgive me." A man who seemed a bit sleazy offered me a glass of red wine. How can young people today not drink? President will have many more business engagements in the future. Not drinking might seem disrespectful, wouldn't it? A hand reached out and took the glass of wine from in front of me. A slightly impatient voice said, "She said she's not good with alcohol. Can't you understand that?" I followed the hand and saw Julian standing beside me, though I hadn't noticed him approach. The sleazy man glared at Julian. "Who are you? What business is it of yours?" Julian idly twirled the wineglass in his hand. "The weather's turning cold. Your company Julian paused, his gaze sharply fixed on the sleazy man, then continued. Is about to go bankrupt. The sleazy man laughed as if he'd heard the most ridiculous joke. Ha ha ha. Who do you think you are? A domineering CEO? You've probably watched too many short-form videos, haven't you? You say bankrupt. And it's bankrupt? Do you know who I am? Do you know my company's strength? Julian pulled out his phone and tapped a few times. The sleazy man thought he was just showing off, waiting with an amused smirk. Seeing put his phone back in his pocket without further action, the sleazy man spread his hands. That's it? Nothing more? Julian casually tugged at his tie. 3, 2, 1. The moment the one dropped, the sleazy man's phone suddenly rang. He stopped smiling, pulled out his phone to answer, and his face instantly turned ashen. He looked at Julian in disbelief. After hanging up, he still hadn't recovered. Who exactly are you? Julian ignored him, instead extending a gentleman's hand to me. May I have the honor of this dance, miss? I took a step forward. With his current stance, my lips were perfectly aligned with his ear. I whispered, it seems your background is quite impressive. Band. Julian turned his head in shock, his lips brushing against mine slightly. I quickly pulled away, ignoring his shock. I stepped out. As I exited the main lobby doors, I saw Andrew and Sharon being stopped by security. Sharon, dressed elaborately, was clinging to Andrew's arm, arguing with the security guards, trying to sneak into the banquet. The guards asked them to leave, citing their lack of an invitation. Sharon saw me first. Isn't that Miss? Andrew's gaze also fell on me. He instantly raised a hand and pointed. I'm her husband. If she can go in, why can't I? The security guard turned, saw me, and immediately became deferential. I raised a hand. I don't know them. The security guard's expression towards them grew even more serious. Sir, you cannot enter without an invitation. Please leave immediately. Andrew became agitated. Grace, are you really going to be this ruthless? You won't let me in because you're afraid I'll meet your new president, and he'll be interested in my project and reinvest. I nodded. If you think your project is so excellent, why are you so fixated on Sterling? You can go find other companies for investment. I shrugged. Seeing the scumbag fuming and worked up was utterly satisfying. Andrew was so enraged he was speechless. Sharon said, That's right, Andrew. I think she has a point. Your project is so excellent. Sterling is just short-sighted. I saw in a finance magazine that the Crown Prince of Metropolis's Pay is returning. Pay also has a branch right here in Harmony. If your project can get the attention of Pay, isn't that an even bigger opportunity? Andrew's eyes immediately lit up. He clearly thought Sharon's suggestion was excellent. He clasped Sharon's hand. Sharon, I knew having you was a blessing. Sharon leaned into Andrew's shoulder, looking coy. I clapped my hands. You two truly are a match made in heaven. Otherwise. Sharon, Andrew, TSK, TSK, TSK. Doesn't that just mean a big white lotus flower has drained one of her many ponds of fish? Sharon's expression shifted slightly, and Andrew's face also turned grim. Grace, don't talk nonsense. I told you. Sharon is just an upperclassman. We have a perfectly innocent relationship. Why do you insist on having such a filthy mind? Even the security guard couldn't stand it anymore. You keep claiming you're our president's husband. So why is your female companion this older mistress? Being called an older mistress by the security guard. Sharon's face instantly contorted even more. I couldn't help but burst out laughing, giving Officer a thumbs up. Well said. Double your salary. Officer nodded at me. Thank you, President. President and Director, a slight difference in title. Andrew didn't notice it for a moment. He glared at me furiously. Grace, what is the meaning of this? You're just going to let your company's dog insult Sharon like that? I spread my hands. Sharon, with such obvious wrinkles on her face. She's probably more than 10 years older than you, isn't she? Sharon frantically touched her face, even with heavy makeup. She couldn't hide her nasolabial folds and crow's feet, especially since she was already a few years older than Andrew. Sharon's eyes welled up with tears. Andrew, I can't compare to Mrs. Youth and Beauty. You should just forget about me with that. She covered her face and ran off. Sharon, Andrew called out to Sharon's retreating figure. Sharon, without looking back, ran out, one hand covering her face, the other lifting her gown's hem. He watched the sky outside growing darker, a flicker of cunning in his eyes. He turned back to me. My business trip right after the wedding was between us. Why are you taking it out on Sharon? Why are you dragging the project into this? I glanced at the darkening sky outside and knew he was trying to stall for time, waiting for it to get completely dark so he could use my night blindness against me. I resisted the urge to roll my eyes. First, take a good, hard look in the mirror and see what kind of person you are. Second, your idealized first love is only 6 years older than you, so why does she look like she's 16 years older? I gasped, covering my lips. Oh. I've heard that women who've had children tend to age faster. Could it be that your idealized first love had a child with someone else abroad and then came back to you to be her patsy? I looked at the top of his head, as if already seeing a vast green meadow. No wonder you're totally cuckolded. Andrew's face was beyond unpleasant. He seemed to spot someone over my shoulder and called out, Julian, come quickly and help me explain. I've been on a business trip abroad this past month, but Grace here has misunderstood. Julian walked over, glancing thoughtfully at the top of Andrew's head. It certainly does look like a vast meadow. I couldn't help but let out a scoff, and Andrew's face became even uglier. Andrew glared at Julian, displeased. Julian, what are you talking about? Nothing. I just happened to see some photos. The person in them looks quite a lot like your older mistress from a moment ago. As spoke, he actually turned his phone screen towards Andrew. I caught a glimpse of the phone screen, which showed intimate photos of Sharon with various men abroad, and even her foreign marriage certificate. One photo was particularly jarring, her in a bikini, intimately posing with 3 men. Julian suddenly raised his hand and covered my eyes. The sight is too foul. No need to pollute your vision. I heard Andrew's hysterical voice. This is fake. These must be photoshopped. Sharon would never be like that. Julian responded cooperatively. Maybe they are fake, but judging by the dates and locations, these were all taken during the years she was out of the country and out of touch with you. Andrew's gaze suddenly fell on Julian and me, a suspicious look on his face. You too? I casually hooked my arm through Julian's. Julian's face lit up with pleasure. I stared at Andrew. Isn't this the groom you personally sent to my bed? Andrew's face instantly contorted. He seized Julian in a fit of rage. You bastard! Who gave you permission to touch her? His fist was about to strike, but Julian retaliated with a punch, knocking him to the ground. I told Officer to leave them be and walked out. As soon as I reached the parking garage, a few men blocked my path. One of them whispered doubtfully to Butch, who stood beside him. Boss, it should be dark outside now, right? How come this woman doesn't look like she can't see? Butch sized me up, and I returned their scrutiny. Butch said, maybe it's not completely dark yet. One of them rubbed his hands together, repeatedly licking his lips, and said with a lecherous grin, honestly, this chick really is the legendary fair-skinned, beautiful, long-legged type. We're really going to get a bargain. My gaze went past them, spotting Sharon's gown peeking out from behind a pillar ahead. Do you know who I am? To dare block my way? The man next to Butch said, aren't you just a pretty blind girl who can't see at night? It's an honor for you to hang out with us guys. My gaze swept over him. Oh, you think I'm blind? The man visibly flinched under my gaze, then leaned uncertainly closer to Butch, whispering, she really doesn't look blind. I extended my hand, looking at my freshly done nails, and said calmly, I'll give you one chance. Whatever you were hired to do to me, go do it to her instead. Otherwise. I looked at them and shook my head. Andrew had told everyone about my night blindness, so Sharon was actually planning to use that to harm me. Too bad they didn't know I had competed in international martial arts competitions and was the women's champion. Butch grinned and threw a punch directly at me. I gripped his wrist, and to his shock, a piercing scream erupted. His henchmen were all bewildered. Boss, what's wrong with you? With a forceful twist, I broke his wrist, then kicked him away. Someone quickly rushed over to help him up. Only then did the men's gazes towards me change. Immediately, someone else spotted Sharon trying to escape. Boss, that woman is over there. So, the group chased after Sharon. As I drove out of the garage and rounded a corner, I saw Sharon being dragged into a corner, her mouth covered, her struggling, unwilling reflection vanished from my rearview mirror as my car turned. The next day, I changed into my commute attire. As I came downstairs, ready to have breakfast and head to the company, I found the living room filled with various exquisite gift boxes. Julian was chatting animatedly with Arthur and Eleanor. Eleanor saw me come downstairs and quickly came over, pulling me. Grace. You're up. Look. Julian came to see you first thing this morning. Julian had bruises around his eyes and mouth. Clearly battle scars from his fight with Andrew yesterday. He stood up, hands clasped in front of him, looking a bit flustered. Grace. I cut him off directly. Mr. Julian, the game is over. Eleanor, seeing my change in attitude, quickly said. What's wrong? Grace, you might not remember, but when you were little, you loved to follow Julian around. How did I not remember knowing Julian when I was a child? Julian looked utterly wronged. It's all right, Mrs. Eleanor. I must have hurt Grace, which is why she's acting this way towards me. It's all my fault. I stared at Julian in disbelief. He looked exactly like a child who had done something wrong, on the verge of tears but trying to hold them back. Was this really the Julian I knew? No. Mom, why don't I remember knowing him as a child? Eleanor pulled Julian and me down to sit, one on each side. Oh, I told you. You probably just forgot. Back when your grandfather was still alive, he and Julian's grandpa were neighbors. Julian would stay at his grandpa's house, and you would follow Julian around all day, even playing house and saying you wanted to be his bride. Hearing say this, Julian quickly added, Mrs. Eleanor, I'm just here to fulfill a promise. To be honest, I apologize for intruding today, but I came to formally propose marriage to Mr. and Mrs. Sterling for Grace and me. I hope you'll agree to our union. As if realizing it might be improper to come alone, he quickly added, my parents are already on their way to Harmony. Calculating the time, they should arrive personally with the engagement gifts shortly. Eleanor's eyes lit up when she heard Julian was there to formally propose marriage today. Then, as if remembering something, she said with a strange expression, but, my Grace just broke up with that scumbag. Would you mind? Julian shook his head vigorously, even pointing to the bruises on his face as if they were trophies. Mrs. Eleanor, look. These bruises are from my fight with that scumbag yesterday. He wronged Grace so badly. If it weren't for the rule of law, I'd honestly beat him to death. Hearing say that, Eleanor's eyes lit up even more. Exactly, she said. Scumbag is completely blind. Then, my heart ached for Julian's bruises. Julian, dear, wait here. Aunt will get you the first aid kit. You need to apply some antiseptic properly. Don't ruin that handsome face of yours. Maria walked over and said, Sir, we have guests. Arthur said, Please, invite them in quickly. Maria replied, Sir, perhaps you should come out yourself. Just as I was about to go out with Arthur to see, Eleanor thrust the first aid kit into my hands. Here, Grace. Julian got into a fight with scumbag for you, so it's only right that you apply the medicine. Without another word, Eleanor pushed the first aid kit into my hands and then followed Arthur and Maria out. Julian looked at me with a completely innocent expression. Then I'll have to trouble you, Grace. I saw his lips twitching upwards, a smile he struggled to suppress. I took out a cotton swab with antiseptic and pressed it onto his bruise with a bit more force than necessary. He gasped in pain. His eyes clouded with mist as he looked up at me and said, Grace, are you trying to murder your husband? I frowned. Don't be ridiculous. I never agreed to marry you. Just as I was about to turn, he pulled me, and I tumbled onto his lap. He leaned close to my ear and whispered, But, you call me your husband every night. His warm breath on my ear sent shivers down my spine. My parents had already brought the guests inside, and what they saw was exactly this scene. They quickly turned away, saying, It seems we've come at the wrong time. We didn't see anything. I didn't see a thing. I quickly pushed him away and stood up. The curve of his lips wouldn't disappear. I secretly cursed him as a cunning fox. Yet, he casually stood up. Dad, Mom, you're finally here. Arthur and Eleanor led Julian's parents to the sofa. I made the excuse that I was hungry and hadn't had breakfast yet, intending to go to the dining room. Eleanor then said, Julian arrived so early. He surely hasn't had breakfast either. Why don't you eat with him? Julian surprisingly nodded in full cooperation. I'm so hungry right now I could eat a horse. So, my parents and his parents began discussing our marriage in the living room, while he and I sat in the dining room, having breakfast. Despite the large dining table, he insisted on sitting right next to me. Just as I was about to drink my orange juice, he had already picked up the glass and placed it in my hand. Just as I was about to eat some fruit, he speared a strawberry with a fork and offered it to my mouth. It was as if he always knew what I was thinking a step ahead. I looked at him suspiciously. He grinned back at me, What's wrong? Is there something on my face? He even touched his own face. Julian, even though things happened between us, what makes you think I would agree to marry you? Andrew is a complete scumbag. But what does that make you? Who collaborated with him to treat me like a plaything? I just thought you had good genes and played along with your charade. You actually took it seriously? In an instant, I watched as his grinning face suddenly welled up with tears. He pressed his lips together. I know it was wrong, but Grace, the reason Enough! I don't want to hear it. I didn't listen to his explanation and stood up to leave. But why did my heart ache faintly? I sat in the executive office, trying to forget those things by working, but's extremely wronged expression kept surfacing in my mind. I irritably closed the folder and walked out. Just as I exited the building, I saw the guest who had been at my house this morning, Julian's mother. She stood outside the building, her bodyguard holding a parasol over her. Seeing me emerge, she walked over. Grace, may I have a word with you? I nodded. Mrs. Sophia, on such a hot day, you're here. She smiled and said, I heard you just started your new position today. I figured you must be very busy, so I didn't want to disturb you. Waiting here, I knew I'd see you. I pointed to a nearby coffee shop. Mrs. Sophia, why don't we go sit and talk over there? We went into the coffee shop and sat at a cozy booth by the window, watching the hustle and bustle of traffic outside. She handed me a very thick notebook. I was puzzled. Then she said, open it and take a look. I turned the pages, and right at the beginning were photos of me as a child. There was also text written on them. Today is the first day I met Grace. Grace is so adorable. I love hearing her call me Big Brother. Today was bullied. I beat up the kid who bullied her until he was crying on the ground, screaming for his mom. I must protect Grace forever and ever. Uncle said to let Grace undergo martial arts training so she'd never be bullied again. I also need to get stronger so I can always protect Grace. Flipping further, there were many more photos and notes. There were also photos from when Andrew confessed his feelings to me, with a note that read, Grace has grown up. On the first day I returned from abroad, I flew straight to Harmony to find Grace. But I was one step too late. She had already accepted someone else's confession. Still, I won't give up. I deliberately got close to Grace's boyfriend, Andrew. If he dared to hurt Grace, I would be the first to go after him. I saw Grace, but I was so sad. I purposely told Grace my name, but she didn't remember me at all. Sniffle. Grace developed night blindness and couldn't see anything at night. Andrew, because of a call from his idealized first love, actually abandoned Grace outside. He carelessly asked someone to take Grace home, not even fearing she might be harassed. So, I volunteered myself to take Grace home. Andrew, that scumbag, has his idealized first love on his mind, yet he still wanted to use a wedding to string Grace along, just because Grace is a sterling executive who could bring him business deals. I will definitely make Grace see his true colors. There were also photos of me in a wedding dress, with a note, Grace looks so beautiful, but that cheap wedding dress doesn't suit Grace at all. How dare Andrew insult Grace like that? He actually exploited Grace's night blindness, wanting someone else to take his place during the wedding night. I will never allow anyone to harm Grace. Grace's groom will only be me, and it can only be me. The notebook was very thick, filled with many photos of me, and everything Julian had quietly done without my knowledge. Tears blurred my vision at some point. Long-forgotten memories flooded my mind. I closed the notebook and choked out, Mrs. Sophia, where is he? He should be at the place where you first met now. I took a step and walked out. The place where we first met, that's the neighborhood my grandpa lived in when he was alive. I drove, pressing the accelerator, feeling as if today's red lights were endlessly long. Finally, I arrived at the neighborhood where my grandpa used to live. The only difference from my memory was that the trees along the road were larger. From the car, I saw Julian under the shade of a tree. I got out of the car and called out to his back. Julian! Julian turned around and saw me, stunned in surprise. I ran quickly towards him and threw myself into his arms. He froze, unsure what to do. Grace? I'm not dreaming, am I? I looked at his dazed expression, stood on my tiptoes, and kissed him on the lips. It's not a dream. It's me, Grace. His pupils constricted. Before he could react, I added, Julian, thank you. You walked 99 steps towards me. I'll take the final one to meet you. He finally reacted, wrapping one arm around my waist and placing the other on the back of my head, kissing me passionately. He only released me when I was slightly breathless, then pulled me into a tight embrace again. Grace, I thought you'd never want to see me again. His voice even carried a hint of a choke. I patted his back soothingly. Given how much you love me, I'll tell you a secret. He released me. I took out my previous pregnancy test results from my bag and handed them to him. He took them, glanced, and pure joy flashed in his eyes. I smiled and said, "Congratulations, Mr. Julian. You're going to be a father." He wrapped his arms around my waist and spun me around several times, drawing glances from passers-by. Julian and I held a grand wedding. We will be happy forever. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any thoughts about this story, feel free to share them in the comments section. Here is Roses and Love, sharing stories about marriage and women every day. See you tomorrow.